What's going on, everyone? Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. There's been a lot of growth on this channel. A lot of people have come to join us here, and so I figured what better time than now to maybe put together a little Q&A video to give you guys a little bit of background on who I am, where I come from. A good friend of mine, Alex Oliver, took the liberties of coming up with some wonderful questions to facilitate this type of video, so we're going to jump right in, and let's dig into who I am and why I'm here and what I'm doing. So I was a zookeeper for about 8 years down in Santa Barbara at the Santa Barbara Zoo, including some time volunteering. I worked on the reptile line there and then assisted with a lot of the other different strings or lines or sections, as we call them. At the time, it was organized by taxa. Since then, it's sort of been organized by physical regions of the zoo. But yeah, I took care of all the reptiles, venomous, gators, tortoises, you name it. Helped with all veterinary procedures and was fortunate enough to work alongside with the bird team, elephant team, cats, and just kind of do a little bit of everything. My now wife and I moved up to Sacramento, and I worked at the Sacramento Zoo for about 1.5 years, where she still works, and again was part of the reptile team, but initially kind of floated around and did a little bit of everything from okapi to kangaroos and everything else. So I've had a wonderful zoo career at both the Santa Barbara Zoo and Sacramento Zoo. Learned a lot, and those dates started in about 2020 or so when 2012 when I was volunteering. 11 and 12, 2011, 12, and then yeah, I've only since gotten out of zoos over the last couple of years since managing PX3. But yeah, I learned a lot about standard of care, husbandry, medical procedures, quarantine, just how to read animals and really just be an overall well-rounded keeper. And those are some of my fondest memories and some great years for sure. I remember being my favorite part as a zookeeper. That could be the list of amazing species of animals that you can't work with as pets or elsewhere unless you're in zoos like lions, or getting to help train elephants and gorillas, or teach penguin chicks how to swim, or do training with animals. I mean, some profound experiences with some really intelligent people that taught me a lot. Getting to work side by side with the veterinary team during medical procedures was very, very eye-opening, and just every day was something new. Learned a ton, and was able to just absorb as much as possible, and I had a lot of fun. It was cool. It's definitely a good job path if you want something that's different, and every day is a little bit interesting for sure. Being a zookeeper definitely taught me to hold myself to a higher standard of care, cleanliness, quarantine, understanding a little bit more of the medical side of things when I was able to be involved in that, and just having kind of an overall eye for things, and just learning to look at your animals a lot, observe them, learn what's normal, think outside the box, and just kind of hold myself to a better standard of care, of health and everything, I think is the biggest one, because I definitely learned the most about quarantine in zoos, that's for sure. And that's definitely crossed over into how I keep. I quarantine, I isolate, I disinfect things. I'm very clean about things, very sterile for the most part. But yeah, I always compare myself to the former me when I was still younger and in zoos and learning all this stuff, to make sure I'm still holding myself to those fun and good achievable standards for sure. Man, who are my mentors? Well, I didn't have a ton of mentorship in zoos. I kind of learned from everybody possible, did a lot of training seminars in zoos, and tried to learn from my superiors. I guess the first person I really learned a lot from and digested everything was my first curator, James Travers, and I just remember a lot of his sayings, and some of his approaches have stuck with me outside of zoos. as far as, you know, my approach to breeding and things like that, Todd Dyer has definitely been the biggest mentor to me, and teaching me to question things and think outside the box and think for myself, and a lot of different things like that. So but yeah, I didn't have necessarily the traditional mentorship, I guess you could say, at zoos. I tried to just learn as much as possible from everybody and apply it wherever I could. Oh man, what made me want to focus on carpet pythons? I think the first time I saw an adult jungle female staring me back in the face in an enclosure with the big muscular head and the deep black eyes and the black and yellow labial pits, that had me hooked. And then after getting a few and just working with them and feeling a bit challenged by them at first, and then really enjoying that challenge, and over the years having other animals come and go side by side, but still always preferring carpet pythons. I think that's been the biggest thing. Yeah, and then Todd opening my eyes to the world of carpets when I went to his warehouse for the first time, and always going to the Southern California shows and seeing his booth and picking his brain and talking to him. I fell right down that well and was hooked instantly, and haven't looked back since. I'm very happy about it. This will be my 10th consecutive year breeding snakes of any kind, and looking forward to another 10 more at least. So I love them. They're my favorites, and I don't see any end to me ever keeping them in sight. I mean, carpet pythons are not as popular as corn snakes or ball pythons because they don't have quite as many morphs. They're a little bit bigger. They have a reputation that precedes them of being even bigger than they actually are, and being way more ferocious than they actually are. They are fantastic eaters, and they are great hunters after dark. Even the nicest carpet python after lights out can still accidentally grab you in a feeding response. But you know, they're a little bit bigger, a little lesser known, a little more expensive, and yeah, they're kind of like the snake you get once you've gotten your feet wet into snakes, you know? Like once you realize what a snake is and what keeping snakes can really be, this is when you figure out like, okay, training wheels are off, getting some good stuff. So some people get them as beginners and they do just fine. Some folks wait and maybe get them as their second snake, but I think it's because they're just not the most prominent front and center, tiny, cute little, come in 3,000 color, you know, shades and whatnot, that a few other snakes have kind of garnered that central spotlight and then act as the gateway snakes into other animals like carpets. So, but that's why I'm always putting out the word on YouTube and trying to, you know, speak good things out into the ether about them, try and change some negative perceptions for sure. Some of the favorite snakes I've produced, man, this year I've been really producing some cool stripes that popped out some ocelots in my jungle stuff, but I've been really pleased with my axanthic tiger projects and the albino citrus tiger projects that really kicked off for me a couple years ago and really started taking shape. We'll be taking some next steps this season, but that was when I was starting to get those visuals and hit it out of the park 2 years ago and the year after, and just did really well. So yeah, that was pretty sweet. I guess those have been sort of my most recent exciting ones. And then just line breeding for some really high colored popwood carpets. I'll never get tired of that. Those are definitely some of my favorites. I would say I'm probably most known for the albino citrus tiger stuff from a couple years ago. Is the first one to produce those. And it's kind of a niche project, but Eric Burke did a great job hyping it up on NPR and promoting it very well before I even got into it. And I fell in love with it because of the stripe and the cleanliness of color and everything. And then he was already taking the foundational steps to make the albino project. So I hopped in and took it and ran with it. And I'm going to do more with it. So I would say that was definitely something that I've really etched my name into. And then until recently, I've been like one of the only people in the States producing axanthic tigers in any sort of way. So I think I had my name attached to that for a while. Now other people are starting to do so. So that was pretty neat. And then I've always been a very proud proponent of popwood carpets and line breeding for just, you know, different wild type looks. So yeah, I think there's a few do really nicely colored poplin carpets that have been saved in people's brains, and they definitely remember me for that. So that's what I think anyway. Never been asked that before. Why did I choose those projects? Citrus Tiger stuff got me just because it's striped, and then has amazing contrast, and Eric's story behind it and how he came across it and how it's different really had me juiced from day one. So that was why I chose to jump into that one. The Xanthic Tiger stuff was just kind of a natural progression for me, because when I first found carpets, I fell in love with the tiger coastals and just, I've always wanted to see tiger coastals in every variety. So when the Xanthic stuff was coming around, that was when I was starting to dabble into grabbing a few mutations and adding to my population. And so I thought, stripes look great, why not make them silver and black? So I'm glad I did, because the end result is phenomenal in many cases. So that was kind of how that came out. Mostly stripes and trying to see them in different colors. And then the poplin stuff, I've gone head over heels for that stuff, because you can still get fresh imported animals. You can get pure stuff from the wild. You have a lot of folks that overlooked it for so long that it hasn't been developed into what, you know, some other animals like jungle carpets have been really worked into. So I think there's a lot of untapped potential, and I'd like to see what that is from, you know, a firsthand point of view from the ground up. So I'd really like to be involved in that, and so I've invested heavily in adding a lot of those wild caught, farm hatch, different bloodlines, you name it, tons of those. I have, you know, one Xanthic, a couple granites and things like that, but I would say 90% of my poplins are all different wild type lines, and I couldn't be happier. There's just so many looks to them. They're just amazing. I can't say enough good things about them. You get stripes, you get bands, you get blacks, you get oranges, you get browns, caramels, yellows. They fire up and fire down. I mean, it's just, the potential is endless. Pretty excited for the future of those, for sure. Well, I'd have to say that every year you learn something new, that's for sure. You know, every year there's new milestones to achieve. There's new things to figure out from a breeding perspective in terms of the genetics, or just what something might look like. You know, there's a lot of preserving bloodlines and localities and things that may have once otherwise almost been lost to herpiculture. So there's some value there. You know, the creative, artistic side of me really likes making things. So making snakes and being able to share that with people is pretty rewarding for me. But yeah, I'm just always learning. I'm always learning more about the animals. More importantly, though, I'm learning more about myself every year. There's hurdles every year. There's new, you know, challenges, new mistakes that I make, and new things to learn from them. So every year, I find myself growing as a result of putting so much time and effort into it. So as much as I learn more about the animals and the community, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I learned a lot about myself during the process. So it's very humbling, and I like it. I would say definitely, before you jump into anything, spend a lot of time with no animals, research as much as possible about what's out there, try and learn about as many species that are out there, and then go get your hands on them before you ever buy them, because you can save yourself a lot of time, money, and headache by, you know, figuring it out before you actually commit to them, because there's so many animals. I mean, we can't all keep what we want, you know, it's just not feasible. So find stuff that's, you know, within your reach, find stuff that you love, ask yourself why you love it, and then go for it, man. Just do it. Even if it's not popular and people tell you you're crazy, it's probably more of a reason to do it, in my opinion. Just trust your gut, go with what you love, and you don't have to breed if you don't want to. You can just be an excellent keeper, you can be a travel guide, you can be a husbandry guru. I mean, just do you, and don't listen to what other people think you should do. I think that's the biggest piece of advice I can give to keepers today. That's a good question. Lately, there's been a lot of new innovation in products and upgrades to, like, you know, equipment and enclosure styles, and standards of care is increasing. You know, more people are putting emphasis on rare or harder to find or harder to breed species, and we're seeing a lot more people with success in those areas. So that's been really exciting. The hobby, or the industry, or whatever you want to call it, has been growing exponentially. So that's extremely exciting. And yeah, I just think as we go along, I feel more privileged to be involved in the reptile world and seeing what's going on. I feel like I've got a front row seat to innovation and creativity of epic proportions from some amazingly brilliant people. And I just get to watch it all and see it all happen and, you know, potentially reap the benefits of it. So it's just a great time to be in the reptile hobby, and I couldn't be happier. I'm way excited. The last, you know, 15 years have been great, and I can't even imagine what the next 15 more are going to be like. So I'm excited. I've become quite an optimist in that way over the years. So really looking forward to the future. A lot of good people getting into the hobby, newer people coming up, surprising me, being really, really smart at a really young age before I ever knew of any stuff. Just impressive, very impressive young generation coming up right now. So that has me really hyped too. What motivates me for the future? I would say all the goals that I've laid out for myself, you know, starting with the stuff that I told myself I wanted to accomplish getting into carpets 10 years ago. That still stands true to this day, and that list of goals has only grown. I've found a little bit of a purpose in putting content out on YouTube and being an educator in this realm, and so that's growing. So that's got me really motivated. You know, I feel like there's a growing audience who really look forward to the videos that I put out, really look forward to the content I put out, and rely on me as a resource for their own information. And so I feel like I owe it to the community to keep going. I feel motivated by them in like the best selfless way possible, you know. Just feel like I have so much I can give back at times and want to give back in any way that I can, even if, you know, it's not much. Yeah, even if I can make a positive impact on one person, I think that's worth it. So what motivates me is everybody else and the future and the goals I set for myself, and, you know, just what's to come, what that could be. Oh man, big wrap up legacy question. You know, that's become a more pondered question by myself lately as, you know, I crossed 35. My wife and I don't have kids. I think about legacy a lot more and what, you know, what's going to be left behind when I'm gone. I don't know what it will physically look like, but I think I'd like to have something merit worthy of writing a book about at some point. I think I'd like to leave a legacy of, you know, being a good voice for these animals and a vocal proponent for them in a positive way, and just somebody who helped push the boundaries and took the torch from those before me and kept it running in an honorable way. If I'm, you know, if I end up with kids, I think I'd like to pass the torch on to a little junior if I ever go that route. But if not, you know, I think books, content creation, mentorship, and fostering future generations is the way to really leave a positive impact and legacy stamp on this hobby. So however that shakes out, we'll see. I'm on the ride, so I really look forward to it. I think the future has a lot to hold, a lot of bright things ahead, and I hope I'm here for as much of it as possible. So, yeah. Well, that was it. Big shout out to Alex Oliver. Thank you, my buddy. Thank you for those questions. Those were great. You are a master of words. I'm going to share something. By the time you're watching this, it's the next day. Alex has an article dropping that I'll be sharing that everybody needs to go check out. I'll be sharing that. And otherwise, I'm going to get on out of here. Go check out my sponsors, Reptile Husbandry Designs, formerly Heli Guy Serpents. Go give him some love. He's got deals going on the website. All that's slowly transitioning over. Reptiles Express for all your shipping needs, although it is pretty much too late and cold and into the holiday season for shipping. You can still get gift cards, all the supplies you might need, and stack up for when spring comes back around. So go check them out. PremanCrickets.com. They're still doing shows, and you can get all the supplies you need while shipping is still open. So check them out. Don't forget the discount codes I've got running for all of those. Riley50 for Reptiles Express and Riley15 at PremanCrickets.com. Other than that, if you aren't a member of USARK in USARK Florida, please go join. The membership makes a big difference. Strength in numbers, as they say. And USARK does a lot to keep unjust reptile legislation off the books so we can continue to educate keeping these wonderful animals and more. And if you'd like to be privy on all the things we've got going here ahead of time, monthly Zoom meetings, discounts on merch, early access to babies, things like that, we've got a Patreon going. So check me out, Riley Goodness on Patreon. And maybe one day they'll invent thermostats that don't click. Until then, catch you guys later. See ya.